Here's something that should make every marketer stop scrolling and pay attention. LinkedIn engagement is at an all-time high, and yet video views just crashed 36%. Audience growth is slowing, and the format nobody was talking about a year ago is now the top performer on the entire platform. So, which LinkedIn are you showing up to? The one that's thriving or the one that's leaving you behind? 1.3 million posts, 16,000 business pages, 2 full years of data. Social Insider just handed us a roadmap. And what it's telling us is that the LinkedIn playbook most brands are running right now is already outdated. So today we're throwing out the old rules and building new ones live together. I've got an amazing panel right here, right now. Welcome to Strategy Talks. I'm Doreen, and we'll be right back with a panel of 5 LinkedIn experts talking about LinkedIn benchmarks for 2026. This is Strategy Talks. I'll be right back.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Doreen Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Strategy Talks. It's Thursday. It's 8 a.m. early in the morning Eastern time, but I've got 4 people who got up early. Well, actually, 3 of them are in Europe, but they're here to talk about the LinkedIn benchmark report that just came out. If you're curious what it looks like, I'm going to put the banner right here below. Right now, you can go pull it up as we're going to talk about this research. But don't worry, we've got some cue cards for you as well to follow along about this conversation about what's happening on LinkedIn, specifically what's happening, what we're seeing in the B2B space. So if you're a business owner, if you're a marketer, and helping with the strategy for a B2B company, this is the live show to not miss. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull up onto the stage the panelists so we can tell you which experts are here today. Now, before I do that, I want to welcome everybody who's here live. If you're listening to Strategy Talks as a podcast, I want to make sure that you are welcomed as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. So I'm going to add to the stage Maruna, Melanie, Christian, and Beth. And we are so excited that you're all here with me today. So my name is Doreen Morin-van. I'm a content strategist, and I live on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the place where I talk to my audience. I learn from my audience. It's where my community is and where I'm constantly really connecting with other experts like these LinkedIn experts that are here right now. So I'm super excited to have them here. So we're going to go in order. Maruna, would you introduce yourself next?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Doreen. I am Miruna. I'm a social media manager at Social Insider, and LinkedIn is our first platform for our social media content. I also write the Glitch in the Matrix newsletter. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I think Melanie is next. Hello.
Thank you, Marina. Hi, I'm Melanie Dodaro. I have been talking about LinkedIn. I was just, as Marina was talking, trying to think of how many years it's been. It's been 16 years that I've been talking about LinkedIn. I've written 5 books about it. And that's because every single year, everything changes. And actually, I have some of my books on Amazon that I've written. Do not buy this book. It is outdated. Go to this newer one. Because, and Christian, I know you have one of my older versions. So it's an ever-changing platform, and it is my goal to, with the people that I work with, to keep them updated on all the constant changes on what's happening, what's working. And yeah, it's always interesting. So I'll hand it over to you, Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. My name's Christian Downer. I run a LinkedIn ads B2B agency in Peterborough in the UK, working with companies to make sure they get consistent visibility and growth, reputation and growth using LinkedIn. I'd like to hand now over to Beth.
Hi, everyone. Beth Granger. I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker. I work with organizations and individuals to help them unleash the power of LinkedIn. And my little twist on the whole topic is that I look at LinkedIn as a networking tool first.
All right. That's wonderful. So I'm going to actually change this out. I wanted everybody to see what we're going to talk about today, but I'm going to actually put some of the findings up here. This is what we're going to talk about today. So interestingly enough, we are at the start of Q2. I just want to kind of frame this conversation for everybody that's watching or that might be listening to this. So we're at the end of Q1 into Q2. It's April 2nd today. And actually this week, I was asked to put a number next to our engagement number. Our engagement number on the page was 8.7. And I had to go and prove that number and say if it's good or if it's bad, right? So you need a benchmark. And where do you find benchmarks? It's Social Insider. It's where I normally go, and they had just come out with this report. So it was super helpful for me to put next to 8.7, which is what we had, or 8.2. I don't quite remember. And then it said 5.2 is the average engagement rate. So I knew instantly that our page was actually doing really well, even though, you know, you're comparing something to something else, you're not really sure. So this was super helpful just to get us started. And then that also helps me project what we're going to do in the next quarter and quarter two. So if you're in this space where you're a marketer who has to prove kind of what these numbers mean, this is another great way, this benchmark report, to help you kind of show to your stakeholders what's going on. And then we're also going to talk about what kind of format works. I remember last year's benchmark report, the big thing that came out, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maruna, is that the carousels were doing extremely well, right? So a lot of people, especially on B2B, dove into the carousels. One of the things that I've noticed on my personal profile, which I don't know, we might talk about this in a minute, is that albums do really well, photo albums. So this is another format that's kind of come, you know, bubbled to the top. Does that mean we should all be using it? So we're going to dive into all of these questions. I'm going to remove this now so we can actually have this conversation. So Maruna, as we dive into these findings that we were just up there, and I'm going to scroll this down below in a minute so everybody who's watching can pull up this report. What's one thing that you want our audience to be careful about when reading benchmarks data like this? Is there anything that they should not take to face value, or some caution that they, you know, you're like, well, it just, is there something that you need to say to everybody who's listening, watching, before we dive into this?
So while diving into this report, it's from what I do when all the time I'm checking the benchmarks for LinkedIn for our page, is, like you said, to compare my engagement to the engagement overall. But I don't think you should take everything personal, because some things might upset you from a professional perspective. But I think that's one thing I want to say to everyone. Don't think data is so personal. It's very important to take them just strategically.
Okay, strategically. I love that. I love that. So the report identifies trends, but doesn't always explain the why behind them. Like the 36% video drop. I remember last year, video was up. So Beth, I see you nodding. What do you think? What have you seen about video? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, even when video was up and LinkedIn seemed to be publicly really pushing people to do video, and now even they're not talking about it as much. And I always think do the kind of content that you're going to get done. In other words, if video was the most important, if it was going to take you 4 weeks to get a post done because you didn't have the resources, do what will allow you to share your thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, Christian.
Yeah, I think the video one's really interesting because we see this in the ads as well, is that it's a great platform if people are going to invest time, but it takes so much more physical time. And when someone's using the platform to kind of have to listen to 10, 15, 20 seconds of your video to really know what you're talking about. Whereas all the platforms that are doing well, the carousels, the images, that kind of thing work because you don't have to break what you're doing on LinkedIn to kind of do them. You don't have to have the sound on. You can really just get straight into that content and kind of, like the other social platforms, get that win straight away. Whereas we find if someone does watch a lot of your video, they're great to retarget because they're really invested, but it's so much harder to get people that far down the journey. So that makes a lot of sense to me that this report shows that video's struggling. And if we're honest, I think LinkedIn feel they know they should be doing video, but they don't quite know where that fits in their ecosystem.
Yeah, I think one of the other pieces that I'm struggling with is to convince the stakeholders to do more video and to experiment with video. I think experimenting is a scary thing for them, and to put themselves in the video is a vulnerable spot for them. So they are always asking, can we outsource that? And it's really not a good thing to outsource. So I think that stakeholders should be on video like we're today, right? We're here. I always explain there's different videos. You don't have to do the TikTok style videos. You don't have to do the walking and talking videos, I'm on a bike and I run 5 businesses type of videos, right? That you could do, just a thought leadership type of thing, or, pieces from a webinar. It looks different for everybody, but experimenting with video might be a scary thing because it does take time. And if it doesn't work, or it doesn't work right away, it's easy for them to dismiss it. That's kind of what I've seen. Maruna, you're nodding. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, exactly. And I really think this 36 year-over-year decrease, it really tells us something important about LinkedIn. I tried with many videos on our page. I think the kind of funny ones, even if it's LinkedIn and not TikTok, works the best. And also the repurposing videos from our live session. And these 2 types of video works, but the rest of them I tried just proved me exactly this data, that LinkedIn is not a video first platform. Even I think in the beginning of last year, LinkedIn tried to push video.
Yeah. One of the things that I have on my personal profile have changed is I was repurposing my live show as vertical videos. I would spend a lot of time, even though there's 2 of us, creating a vertical video, and those they stopped working. So now it's much easier to repurpose a clip from a horizontal video like this. And when somebody says something really good, it's a much easier lift. And actually, I've seen a lot more engagement, maybe not as much reach, but a lot more engagement from these short horizontal clips. So that's something I've seen on my personal profile. So let's dive into the rest of the report. So native documents. Native documents are winning. That's what the report is saying. 7% engagement rate, number 1 format, up 14% year over year. Melanie, you're working with a company right now. Are you using Carousel? Are you using?
That's one of our primary formats. And there's a reason for that. The reason that they're winning, and that they probably will continue to win, unless, of course, they get abused, which, as marketers always abuse everything, right? And then they stop working for a while. And then we have to kind of reinvent things. But the reason that they work is because people spend more time on them. And it's one of the key metrics that LinkedIn's looking at when it's just gauging whether or not a post is valuable. And that's the dwell time, how much time somebody's spending on it. So each click, each slide that they're going through, is telling LinkedIn that this post must be valuable because people are spending time on it. So I think one of the key concerns, though, is that just because carousels are the top performing format right now, doesn't mean that everything should become a carousel. And I see a lot of people just trying to make a carousel out of anything and everything, really low substance. Okay, instead of this being a single image, let's make it a three slide carousel, but there's no substance to it. So a carousel is great when you can put substance behind it.
Yeah, Beth,
I will just say one contrarian thing about the videos. Dorian, I know you're great on videos. I hate videos. This is only my second LinkedIn Live ever.
Oh my gosh. You are brave then to come on a panel. Everybody, that's awesome.
I only did it for you. If anybody else would have asked me, the answer would have been no. And when you asked me, I thought, we haven't connected in a long time. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to say yes. So I disagree with most of what you said about videos, and that's because I have a different personality type. I'm a total introvert. I hate videos. And you are fantastic at them. And I don't think that people should do videos unless they feel really comfortable and good doing them. But secondly, I think LinkedIn is not the platform for it for the most part. LinkedIn says something's a video view if it's been on screen for 3 seconds. All somebody has to be doing is scrolling through the news feed, and the video can be on their screen for 3 seconds. It's a video view. It's not a video view. So there's a lot of, I think,
Right. Yeah. A lot of controversy. I used to go into the LinkedIn on my phone into like the LinkedIn video feed and see all the videos, and they all start looking the same now. It's the same format that works. Anything different is not. So I'm starting to see a lot of the same actors doing multiple videos. So I've kind of stepped away from that. And like I said, I want to see it in the regular feed. And that's why I'm starting to do horizontal videos. I think that's working well. When we're talking about carousels, I have to say that I tested something last month that worked. And that, I don't know if you talked about that, Melanie, when you're like, people are trying new things. I was talking about an event that just happened for a client. And instead of putting an album together, I thought, what if I make slides out of it, right? Instead of just putting up, 20 pictures that kind of look discombobulated, what if I made a slideshow? So I made a carousel slideshow, and they questioned me. They're like, why did you do it like that? Why did you not? Because it was a little bit of work. I had to put them in Canva and make a document out of it. But we had over 100 clicks. 100 people actually stayed and looked through all of the pictures. And I'm like, that's a win. Beth.
I have heard, I haven't seen it myself, but some from people in my community, they've seen, they don't know if it's a test or what it is, they've seen slideshow type or carousel type posts that auto advance. So I don't know if that's something that we're going to see, but that is kind of interesting.
It's almost like a video. I wonder, it's in a way you can create that kind of video. It's like almost like a reel, right? Where you just auto advance every 5 seconds. That's another way to use a video that doesn't necessarily have to have people in it, right? So you can create it that way where you have photos and every 3 seconds it clicks through. It's another way to use photos. So yeah, we marketers are pretty creative in figuring out formats that work. Anybody else want to talk about native documents or slideshows, as we call them, or carousels? Anything, Christian? Is that something that you're doing ads on? Is that something we are doing ads on, or is that not a possibility?
Yes, so you can't run ads to slideshows and document ads in the same way as you would natively. However, document ads as a format is a really popular way. So it's basically a way of gating your lead magnet, your PDF, your slideshow in a way that they get 2 or 3 in, and then you like to get the rest of the details. You need to capture your data basically. And one of those things is you can capture quite easily is their LinkedIn URL. So whatever they put in, you can kind of see who's getting that data. So you could take that approach if you had like a slideshow of event pictures or something like that. You could post that up and as an ad to people maybe, and kind of go, well, if you want to see the whole thing, you can get that. And that's a really effective way of kind of getting that low hanging people onto your list and bringing them through. But yeah, the LinkedIn ads inventory for kind of content is a lot more restricted, a lot more limited in what you can do. So kind of a lot of what we've talked about, the multiple images, as kind of an album, and they just don't translate to ads. But organically, I back up what everyone else has said. They do get great engagement, and we'd always look to mix it up.
Awesome. So we're going to go to multi-image posts. They drive likes and impressions, right? So I kind of talked about it a little bit. Sometimes if it's just pictures, it kind of gets jumbled in there. Maruna, can you explain how you at Social Insider use multi-image posts?
So we didn't use recently this type of post on our social media page on LinkedIn. But what I can say about multi-image posts is that they are exactly like an album, and it's the best type of post for likes for all across all pages because they drive curiosity. I think that's the main driver that from which we gain this data. They are kind of complementary to document posts, to carousels, because you have to swipe, you have to see the next photo, and probably that's why people make them like, because they have to bring value to that post.
Yeah. Beth, what are you seeing there with multi-image posts?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing back in the day when I was responsible for a global website. It was, what could we look at to show interest or show interaction? So if the person consuming the content was taking an action, so even if that action is clicking through to the next page, that shows something that, first of all, it proves that they're seeing the content in a way that you don't always get that data. So very useful.
Yeah. I am going to let you guys talk about the next thing, because Christian just alerted me that something is happening on LinkedIn. I know we're live, but it might have created a new event. So I'm going to alert everybody else that is waiting for this live. So I'm going to give you the next talking point. It's about polls. And polls are the reach play for bigger pages. So Maruna, if you want to start that conversation, I'm going to just actually remove myself for a second. I'll be right back. You talk amongst yourself about polls.
Okay, that's great. So polls do perform really well in terms of impressions, especially for big pages over 50K followers. I personally don't think they are a universal growth hack. Maybe polls work best when they reflect a real conversation your audience is already having, not for something really niche. And for smaller accounts like we have, I like to use polls to make a sneak peek, especially when we are about to release a study. I like to ask our audience, hey, for you, what is the best, where did you find the best engagement on which post on LinkedIn? And they're going to find the data in the study, but I'm just curious. I'm just doing a check, and I also like to find some feedbacks about our product, about a study, and I think for smaller accounts I use poll as a way to learn about my audience, to spark interaction, not just wanting a massive reach.
Maruna, on the polls on the company pages, can you see who has responded to the poll like you can on personal profiles, or is that not possible?
Like to see the person?
Yeah, so on a personal profile, if you run a poll, you can see who's responded and you can see that their names and obviously then see their profiles. Can you do that on a company page or not?
No, I don't think you can see the names, like names of the profiles. I think you can all see the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I put the link to the live. When I got started on this live, technical, when you're alone and you're the director and the host and the facilitator, there's a lot of things going on. So it started the live, but it started a new live. So I put the link of the live where we're actually live into the other event. We'll get it all sorted out. Thank you.
This is why I don't do lives, Dorian.
Well, I do them every week, and usually they go fine. So there was a glitch in the metric right there, a glitch somewhere in the universe, but we're all good. And that's actually something that I want to tell everybody it's not on this research, but my own research is that when you go live every week, there is a lot of value, not just in showing up and being there and telling your audience, I'm here, I'm visible, but a lot of the engagement and watch time comes after the live. It's not necessarily during the live. It's actually has a really long shelf life. And that's one of the reasons I do these lives. Even if 5 people see it on LinkedIn and a couple on YouTube, then it becomes a podcast. Then it just, LinkedIn keeps showing it to people and people will find it. So that's what I like about it. Now, live is great because people can ask questions and there's a Q&A involved in all of that. But there's also this longevity of this post doing really well. And then for me, personally, just doing something over and over, it's like, we're getting better at it the more we do it, kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons behind me doing live. Okay, so we kind of touched on polls a little bit. Let's go to the audience growth. The audience growth is slowing. Large pages down to 6.4%. Smaller pages are at 24.5%. Is follower count still the right metric to care about, or should we optimize for something else? Beth, what do you think about that? I'm going to go to you.
Yeah, that is always a dilemma. So I have one client and we sort of balance the follower count with the engagement. So you could have a smaller number of followers, but if you're getting the right people, then that's good. People, of course, like big numbers. And because of the whole thing of only a certain percent of your followers will see any post, the larger you have as an audience, the more people will potentially see it. The other thing that I like to look at is employee advocacy. So are people that work for the organization sharing it as individuals so that their networks can see it? And that can be challenging for certain companies if they're risk averse or they're afraid to let their team post or engage in that way.
Interesting. Melanie.
One thing that I think is really a great addition to LinkedIn, and that's where we can now see each post that we do, how many followers we've gotten from it. And that, I think, is one of the key metrics that we should be focusing on is this post that we've created giving us new followers? Because if it is, it's a learning thing for the actual posts itself, right? So, on a personal profile, one of the key metrics I'm paying attention to now are saves. Is this post save worthy? Is it valuable enough that people are willing to save it? Also, we can also see how many new followers we've gotten on a personal profile. But on company pages, I really love that. How many new followers do we get from this particular post? Because a lot of metrics are vanity metrics, right? Even engagement rates. So, the engagement rate now, I think it was at 5% last year overall on LinkedIn, this year 5.2. But that's something that also is important to note on that. That's overall, but there's industry specific engagement rates. For example, in the energy sector, the engagement rate's only 3%. So, but seeing who's following us from each individual post, I think is extremely valuable information.
Yeah, Maruna, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with Melanie. We also have studies about each industry and each engagement industry. So it's always important to compare the overall engagement to your industry. So even if when you're doing reporting quarterly, yearly, you have to look at the overall engagement rate and also your industry, because basically you are comparing yourself with your industry mostly, rather than the whole the whole LinkedIn space.
Yeah. One of the things that surprised me when that new number came out, like how many followers did you get from that post? How few posts give me new followers initially. And then I was trying to figure it out. And then just, for example, yesterday on April 1st, I didn't have a joke, but I posted, I'm just here for the laughs with a popcorn emoji. 2 people followed me. Maybe my sense of humor. I don't know. I was like, okay, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe they're following me because I'm hosting this incredible live panel today. But it was like, okay, that is weird. So I do always look at my numbers. And if you're watching this, whether you're a marketer marketing yourself, a marketer helping a B2B company, look at those numbers every time you post, and you will start seeing a pattern of when people follow you, when you say something that is, curiosity driven or something really smart or something controversial, right? What are people reacting to and why are people following you? I love that, Melanie. I think that's a great metric to pay attention to. Christian, is that something that when you're looking at ads, LinkedIn ads, thought leadership ads, is that something that you use as a metric? Like, hey, this one ad organically gained us a bunch of followers. This might be, or this organic post gained us a lot of followers. This might be a good one to use as an ad. Is that a metric that you use?
That's absolutely one of the approaches we take, because it tells us that it's connecting with the audience that we've built. And because we're running ads, followers isn't necessarily a key success metric, but what it allows us to do is it's a social proof sign that the content that we're putting out there is connecting with the audience. But then when we're running paid ads, because we're looking to get an outcome, we kind of use these metrics in a different way anyway, particularly if we've got sales teams. We would tell, if we're running targeted ads to certain groups and they're engaging, they're liking, they're commenting, and we can see the names of those people and their roles and their responsibilities, we actually treat that as a very soft lead that we can give to our sales teams and say, look, these are people you can kind of, almost Beth said, it's a networking tool as a way of going, well, we know they've liked our content, so we can connect with them and go, we see you've seen some of our content. And whereas on, say, Instagram or Facebook, that might be a little bit creepy. On LinkedIn, it's kind of, as long as the message is on the right tone, it's seen as acceptable. And as our clients are unlocking quite high profile leads by kind of being very mindful of who's engaging with the page and taking action. Because if we're going to run ads, we're going to invest in the content, then we want to make sure that we've got a system in place to kind of pounce on that so that we're getting the maximum return on that spend.
All right.
One of the things I say within our company is if a post doesn't perform well organically, do not put money behind it.
Yeah. That's why I love having that really great conversation between the organic and the paid team. Organic is a great way to start if you have a startup, right? Start posting, start testing. It's a great testing ground. I know Social Insider does a really good job with trying new things and testing new things. And I love that. And then, finding out what works. And then when you start a paid media campaign, it's always good to look to social, what works, for at least your current audience, right? You're trying to build an audience with paid media, usually building and getting more people to come in, but you have to serve who's there initially. So starting with the best organic posts or the post ideas is a good way to do that. Beth, do you have anything else about this particular conversation right here, or I saw you nodding?
No, just that I agree with what everybody's saying.
Okay, the organic and the paid.
Yeah, and I think some people just in an attempt to get any action will put money behind something when it doesn't make sense to do that, and there are better ways to do things.
Yeah, so this is a great lead-in. Thank you, Beth. Okay, now we've discussed some of the findings, and it's a huge report. So I encourage everybody to go read this report. I'll put it back on here. But just as an overall thought right now, we're all strategists. We all work with clients. We're all, Maruna, you're in charge of the social media for Social Insider. So we're all kind of working towards, a Q2 plan if we don't already have it. Anything in here struck you as, I'm going to add something to my plan, or I'm going to pivot slightly, maybe this one tactic, or based on what we're seeing? For example, am I going to push my clients to to create video specific, maybe not. Maybe I'll repurpose video that I have because it's down anyway, right? So why put in effort? Or maybe I was pushing polls and maybe, the page isn't large enough. Maybe I'll step back from. Is there anything that you've seen here that's going to make you take some action? Either of you. Maruna, what are you doing at Social Insider? Because I'm curious. You're the ones who generated this report and did the research. So,
yeah, one particular thing I want to tell you about is about follower growth that we speak earlier, because after analyzing this report and many others from the other years, I realized that now the behavior change a lot. Instead, when we talk about following a page, it's a different type of user behavior. It's a longer journey now. People don't follow you instantly. They don't press that follow button and they just move along with their lives. They need to feel like the brand consistently delivers value and deserve to be in their feed. So one of my goal was to grow the LinkedIn follower page, like the follower number, but it's not anymore right now. My personal goal for this page and my KPI is to bring more value. How can I make them want to follow me? So this is just a shift in the way I see things as a strategist, as a social media manager, the way I see my audience behavior and how I analyze also the content pillars I add in my content calendar month over month, because that change also.
this is that it's, I love that. I love what you just said, because I've seen the same thing, but I also see that with you. And my consumer behavior is exactly the way you described, right? I might watch an influencer on, Instagram, and I'll see it in my feed and I read their stories but then I realize, like, how can I find them? Wait, I didn't follow them. I literally know their story and I didn't follow them. And then finally there's something that makes me either want to refer back to them or use them as an example. And I'm like, okay, I need to be able to find them and put my hand on, I want to know what's next. That's when I follow them. And I think that Social Insider, if anybody's watching, listening, if you haven't followed them, you want to know what's next. And that's, Maruna, that's the value that you bring. There's always a next. It isn't just like, oh, we're not going to post for a little bit or there's nothing going on. You have content that's valuable enough for people to say, I want to know what the next post is. And so I love that you just described that. Melanie, are you finding something similar there for, that you can, based on this report, that's something that you can move forward with, or something that you might change on, the company that you work for based on what you found or your own findings?
Yeah, so I love what you said, Marina, and also your acknowledgement and agreement with that, Dorian. But what I'm trying to figure out is what kind of metric can we put behind that? Like, so if we're saying, okay, this particular metric isn't as of value because the user behavior has changed and continues to change, especially on LinkedIn. And part of that is because LinkedIn also emphasizes and de-emphasizes things on a regular basis. So horizontal videos did well for a while. Why did they do well? Because LinkedIn pushed them. Remember when our feeds were inundated with polls? Because LinkedIn was pushing them. Right? And then LinkedIn's now, why are videos not doing well? Because LinkedIn's de-emphasizing them, because LinkedIn tends to learn things a little bit slowly, right? Oh, I want to be like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and everything all in one. And then they realize, oh, our members, our base doesn't want all those things. So, it's this constant testing ground. But it's a great question, because it's a question that I struggle with a lot.
Yeah. So what metrics should we put behind that? Beth, do you have any thoughts?
I always think of it a little bit like politics. So the politician wants to shake your hand at the local train station. They want to call you. I know people want to be able to put a number directly, see an action and put it directly to a purchase or some kind of action, but it's not always possible, quite honestly, in my opinion. Sometimes it's the accumulation of things that happen that lead to the action from the client or potential client. So that's where, as marketers, it can be very frustrating because people want to see that straight path, and it's not always a straight path.
Yeah.
I'll give you one quick example of something that I encouraged. And then one of the things, one of the new cool things to do on LinkedIn is commenting. And everybody will say, you have to comment a lot. And that's really, I guess, fine for these LinkedIn influencers that do nothing other than sit and play on LinkedIn all day. But most of us actually do things and work and, are playing. So most people are not going to do that. And in fact, I've written 5 books on LinkedIn, spent 16 years talking about LinkedIn. I don't do that, nor will I ever do that. To me, it's a waste of time. Doesn't mean that I shouldn't comment and be there. And I'm telling the experts in our company to do that. One of them actually did do that because I encouraged them. We had this post and somebody had said something. And I asked if one of the experts could actually reply to this. One did, and immediately from that one single comment, she got asked to be a panelist at a large conference. So one single comment. I mean, these things, LinkedIn's the right audience for this stuff. So that's something that's really important. Hard to manage. It's also hard for me to teach. I'm trying to figure out, how do I teach this to? How much time are they supposed to spend? Where are they supposed to look? And, it's there's so many challenging things with trying to educate people on how best to take advantage of these opportunities.
Right. I love what Beth said, that is accumulation of things, and immediately dumped to me is, how many marketers out there, and, if you're watching this live, let us know. But if you're watching this on the replay or you're listening to this, be honest with yourself. Are you speaking to your sales team enough? So, because what ultimately the stakeholders care about are the SQLs, right? Did we make a sale? And so marketing is tied to that. So what are we doing in marketing that is getting us the MQL, the marketing, qualified lead? So if, somebody left one comment and then got to ask to speak on a panel, I would consider that an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, because they haven't made the sale yet, but now they're in front of the right audience where that person can make the sale. So that would be a metric. Is there an action? And a marketing qualified lead for me personally would be somebody coming to my DMs and saying, hey, let's have a meeting, right? So if once we have a meeting, then we might talk about, working together. That's an MQL. So the conversation goes from, engagement metrics and likes and followers to, what's actually moving the needle. And I know with, LinkedIn ads, Christian, I'm going to punt it to you, it's a little bit clearer, right? Because, even though ads don't always necessarily sell, you're getting, you have to get results in order to keep putting ads out. I'm assuming you have to get those leads. And so it's more direct than what everybody else is doing, but we all should be monitoring. And if you're in marketing, you should be talking to your sales team every week, every month. What are the leads coming in? Are we following up on the leads? Are we talking to the right people? Because we need to know how many qualified leads come in from marketing in order to know if we're selling. So Christian, I'm going to punt it to you about that. Yeah,
that's a really interesting thing, because I see 2 kind of versions of this, because you've got the LinkedIn ads where you're focused on an outcome, how many SQLs are we getting through that are seeing our ad? But that's the bit of LinkedIn ads that makes people kind of shy away from them. You have to invest, lots of money in getting those and spend a lot of time kind of, the cost of experimentation there is quite high to get that to really finessed and fine tuned. Where I see the real opportunity at the moment is all of the things that the LinkedIn influencers talk about the comments and the likes and being able to follow up with those people. You can use LinkedIn ads to kind of turn that up to 11. And you say, look, well, realistically, what I want to see, if we're running kind of the lower end type of LinkedIn ads, these thought leader or just these kind of engagement type things, it's like, how many of those people are on target audience that we can have real conversations with, so that when we send them a connection request or a a DM, it doesn't feel like it's not cold anymore. It's warm because there's a bit of, they know who we are. It's so much easier for those sales teams. So we're saying, look, we're not going to give you these kind of gift wrapped leads that you might get from full funnel ads, but what we're going to give you is people that have shown an interest in our brand that you can connect with and start conversations with, and you start developing and using that networking tool that, you know, Beth talked about in her intro. And also the one metric that I love, because when we get this metric, it means that my contract is secure for quite a long time, is when clients go to conferences or they go to their clients' offices and they go, we see you everywhere. It's like, we see you everywhere. I can't miss your content. And they tell you things, whether it's personal account or company, they know what you're up to, because like you mentioned something and they go, oh yeah, we know you're going to that you're sponsoring that conference. We saw it on LinkedIn. So it's kind of, it's really hard as an ads person, as a former, you know, as a recovering performance marketer, it's really difficult to kind of live with this kind of metric. But that intangible thing of, we see you everywhere, we know exactly who you are, and therefore when you do outreach or you do the other things you're supposed to do to win on LinkedIn, then that just becomes so much easier.
I'd love to add something to that. There's the human nature part of LinkedIn. So we want people to engage with our content. We want people to visibly engage with us, but not everybody is comfortable doing that because they don't know, you know, is my boss going to see that I'm on LinkedIn during the day? Are my competitors going to see? So there are people who are not comfortable engaging, but like Christian said, when they see you in person, they'll say, oh, I love that post about whatever. So the lurkers are my favorite people. And that's both for me and my clients. That's led to so many great things where you don't know the person's seeing your content and then they randomly pick up the phone and call you and hire you for something. So.
And there's many of them out there. Like, Christian, you want to follow up on that?
I just wanted to follow up on Melanie's point about comments, actually, which is my favorite strategy for comments at the moment is finding people of influence that have made a post that's bombed and isn't getting any likes or engagement, and being the person to not just put, hey, great post, but to put something insightful in there, tag them in it. Because, you know, the wisdom that some of the influencers will say is like, find a really popular influencer and, you know, comment on their post, and you get, this is like, no, I want to find someone that's not getting that reach. And then, because how powerful is it, and that kind of reciprocity idea, to comment on that post, give a really insightful comment, and then if you do want to reach, you know, talk or start a conversation with that person, how much more likely are they to want to speak to you than they would be if you're just one of 100? So that's my comment strategy, is to find people that I value comments, posts that aren't necessarily doing great, and being the person to add value and get involved.
Yeah. So you're really just being a human who sees the lonely person in the room, right? On the network. And I do that in person, and I know all of you pretty well. I think all of you are the same, to have empathy for, you know, you walk into, not everybody has this, but if you have it, use it. If you walk into a room, in a crowded room of networking people, instead of going to the popular group that are already talking, find the person who's standing there awkwardly holding their coffee and go have a conversation with that person, and then introduce them to another person, because that's where the sweet spot is. Those are the people who usually have a lot to say, but who might not be ready to go out. And so that's where I have found success as well, Christian. I love that you mentioned that. And yeah, we are busy workers. We're marketers. We're in the trenches. We're not going to spend all day commenting. But you know, when we have the time and do that, I think that is a great way to do that. I love that. And Melanie, I think that's one way that, you know, if you have you know, people within your company that you're working with, you would maybe give them one or two and say, hey, here's a post, you know, this is one to comment on, like you did before, you know, really pre-qualify them, I guess, for the busiest people, and say, this is a great post to comment on. This is a great post to comment on, and set up a system for that, or a cadence at least for that. And say, you know, whether that's through a Slack channel or not. Maruna, do you guys have a system for that? Tell us.
Yes, that's why I was about to say that we also have the strategy of outbound comments, and I love to do that. It's actually my my favorite 30 minutes of the day. We have an Excel file with some of our clients, our LinkedIn pages, some of our ICPs links, and some other people I found on LinkedIn that I like to interact with as a brand. So every time I have 30 minutes per day, I just go pick 5 clients, pick five from our ICP, and start commenting. And also, like Christian said, I love to comment on not just like that popular brand that posts something. I saw such a link between our brand and another person, like from our ICP, when somebody posts, "Hey, I just bought a new cat," or "Hey, I just moved into a new house," and me as a brand, which at first I found it very cringe to go there and said, "Oh my God, congratulations! Now I'm so happy to do it." And when I saw they comment me, "Oh my God, thank you! We are besties now," or kind of like this, it just makes our brand feel like. We are their friends, they're second in command, and it's more just marketing is like a human connection between the person behind the screen, the person behind the brand, which is me, and the person behind their screen. And this is our system. It's easier to follow this way because I don't spend a lot of time scrolling. I spent a bit of time building this page, but not anymore right now because I already have it and it's easier to just go by there.
That's a great idea. Yes, Beth.
I'll add to that. When I'm advising people, some people get distracted by the feed. So, Christian, don't listen to what this advice I give them. I say ignore the feed completely because that's LinkedIn showing you what it wants to show you. Pick, like you were saying, Marina, pick 5 great prospects, 5 clients, 5 referral partners, and bookmark or however you choose to do it. Go to their content directly to engage with them and ignore the feed completely because we, like Melanie said, people don't have all day to be on the platform. So if you can be more strategic and pick the people you want to be engaging with, that can be very strategic.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're at the fast fire round, or whatever it's called, the rapid fire round. Just one word or one sentence answers. One format you tell every brand to post more of in 2026. Maruna.
Carousel, of course.
Melanie.
Well, I would say carousels, but since Marina did, let's say infographics.
Okay, Christian, that's a good one. Christian.
Given what I do, I'm going to say thought leader ads for their best organic posts.
All right, Beth.
Newsletters.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with test horizontal video. All right, next one. One thing that's totally overrated on LinkedIn right now. Melanie, I'll go with you first. Video. Christian.
Premium company pages.
All right, Maruna.
I'll have to think about it. Let me 1 second.
All right, Beth. I'll do Beth.
Oh, overrated. Using AI to create your content.
Ooh, we didn't talk. You know what I love about this conversation? I just realized we're 52 minutes in. We haven't used the word AI until 52 minutes in. That is a feat that is amazing. I love this. Is a human panel talking about human stuff. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's going to be one of my hooks to promote this. It took us 52 minutes to get there. Maruna, do you have one that's overrated?
Okay, I'm gonna say commenting on popular pages because we talk about it and I agree with it.
That actually was going to be my answer too. So especially after, we talked about, commenting, it has to be strategic, right? We're talking about strategic moves that we're making. And so just commenting to stuff that's in the feed is not strategic, but commenting on and high profile pages or pages that already have lots of comments, that is not a good strategy. Last one, best piece of LinkedIn advice you've ever ignored and wish you hadn't. Ooh, anybody have an answer? Raise your hands because I don't want to call out the first person.
Yeah,
Melanie, go ahead.
Newsletters, because when it's like with anything with LinkedIn, in the beginning they pump it like crazy, and so trying to do one now, versus doing one when they first came out, it'd be massively amplified. So it's still a great strategy, but back then when it came out, it was definitely much better.
Yeah. And I will piggyback on that. I definitely, if you're learning anything from this with everything you're doing, watch what LinkedIn is promoting, watch what LinkedIn is doing. When video first came out, I jumped on video. I had an amazing 5 months of video content that had millions of engagements and views and impressions, and they cut it off literally January 1st in 2025. It just cut it off. So the same with newsletters. I wasn't the first one to jump in, but I was pretty early. So I do have a robust LinkedIn newsletter start on my personal profile. So if they start pushing something, if you follow LinkedIn and see what they're pushing, that is actually, don't sit on something. Go test it yourself. Beth, what do you have?
I can't think of one.
Okay, that's
Really
all right.
Yeah,
that's okay. How about you, Christian?
I'm struggling, but I would say the not jumping on the latest thing that LinkedIn are pushing as quickly is definitely something that I've always put. I'll get round to it, and you never get round to it, and then everybody's got their massive newsletter, or that trend changes, and you're frustrated.
Yeah. How about you, Maruna?
I don't think it fits, but I'm gonna say building my personal brand around my brand, like the brand that I'm working for. It's something that I'd miss, and I'm trying to do it now.
Yeah, that's really smart. Yeah, one of the things, just what you just said, Christian, about the trends that you missed. I actually got early access to LinkedIn Live, probably 2022, 23, whenever that first happened, maybe 21, and I got it, and then I didn't use it, and LinkedIn giveth and then took it away. And then I had to wait like the masses of everybody else. So I was like, darn it. So yes, if you get access to something early, to a tool, test it. We are marketers. We should be testing it on our own profiles before we recommend something to figure out how to use it to recommend and to our clients. So we're at the end. I am just so grateful for all of you to bring your expertise, and whereas we had a little technical glitch and maybe not everybody who signed up watches live with us, they're sure to gonna get the replay. This is an amazing conversation, amazing wealth of knowledge in this virtual room today. Maruna and Melanie and Beth and Christian, thank you so much for being here today. If there's one place that you want people to connect with you, I'm assuming all of you are on LinkedIn, you're LinkedIn experts, but if you have another place that you want people to follow you, or you have something that you want to share with your audience, with our audience today, of giving them a piece of encouragement or a piece of knowledge, I'm going to give each of you about 30 seconds to a minute to close it out, and then I will take over. Melanie, you want to go first?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think, at the end of the day, there's many people try to emulate people on LinkedIn, and, it's not a good strategy. What works for somebody, one person doesn't work for another. At the end of the day, offer value in everything that you do. One thing that's really important that I've always talked about and always taught, and that's for every single post that we have, there needs to be a goal and an objective. So you guys, Dorian and Maroon, I think you both were talking about these pictures and people sliding through and looking at the pictures. That's not my thing, because I'm not interested in looking at those kind of things, nor sharing those kind of things, but they work for other people and they work for certain objectives and goals. And everything doesn't have to be a thought leadership goal or hey, I want people to go to my website goal. It can sometimes just be an engagement goal. And an engagement goal is good enough, because when somebody's engaging with one of your posts, they're going to be more likely to see your future posts.
That's awesome.
So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Christian?
Mine would be, if you're going to invest in content creation, invest in content distribution. And that doesn't have to be a massive amount of investment. I think minimum spend on LinkedIn now is £300 a month roughly, or about $500. And that hyper focus to the people you really care about can have massive impact on your business. So if you're going to spend all this time creating videos or having a content strategy, find the best stuff, invest in its distribution, and over time, that consistency will pay off.
Awesome. Beth.
Two things. One, as a brand, don't be afraid to experiment. Everybody's mentioned that, because things are always changing. And for instance, the minute the study was done, something changed. So, and the other thing is, as an individual, if you're ever wondering, should I say this thing? Should I do this behavior on LinkedIn? Imagine you were in a room full of people, a networking event. Would you say that thing, or would you do that behavior? Or would somebody look at you funny and walk away?
Very good wisdom. Maruna.
I'm going to be short. Every time you build something as a brand or as a personal, look at data, be strategic, but also add a bit of empathy, a little glitter of empathy in everything you do.
I love that. All right. Well, we are exactly at an hour. I so appreciate your time with us today, but also those of you who are watching this on the replay, listening to this. There is so much value. I am going to be sharing this far and wide. I appreciate your time today, coming and listening and learning from these 5 experts. Experts, thank you so much for being here with me today. I will be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. This was a special episode, and thank you so much. Bye, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.